This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, let's start the Audit Finance Committee meeting. My apologies for being a couple minutes late. Skip the chairman's comments and go to the review of financials. Hopefully everyone had a chance to look at those. I don't know if the staff has any commentary to make with respect to the year-to-date performance, any particular line items or the budget.
I have no questions.
Okay. Jody, any comments specifically, or we?
No, the only thing that's not reflected in here yet is we're still waiting to hear from Small Business Administration on the $200,000
Skyline.
pilot for the hotel.
Yes.
It was submitted by, is it Pyramid? Pursuit.
Is the entity that does the submission to the SBA.
They submitted it last Thursday. They're expecting to hear back at the end of this week or early next week. They have a good track record of whatever they've submitted in the past and been approved by the SBA, so I'm assuming that it's going to be approved. But it's not reflected in any of the financials right now.
How much is that? Do we know in the end?
That RFP would be $205,000.
Great.
Any other thoughts or questions? Note unfinished business. Who would like to lead the discussion? Would you like to make it, Donna?
Yeah, so we had a meeting yesterday with Jeff Lord, me, myself, and Jody, and discussed the opening of CDs, which we kind of touched on in past meetings.
Yep.
We determined that, well, we have a money market account. It has about 239,000 in it at MBT. So we are going to take 235 of that, put it in a CD for 12 months at a rate of 5.25. And we're going to leave about 4,000 in that money market just in case we ever want to put that money just back in there. We don't have to open a new account. And then at Community Bank, we're going to open another CD. That one's 350. We're taking money out of the CRC, putting it into a CD in the CRC's name. That'll be 15 months at a rate of 5.15.
What was the money market?
That's interesting.
Just out of curiosity. Less than 1%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very small.
Great lows.
Yeah.
And we met with,
Jamie Reynolds.
yeah, Mr. Reynolds before we met with Jeff, and he's agreed that we should move that money into a CD.
Mr. Reynolds?
Yeah, Mr. Jamie Reynolds, yeah.
So in addition to those two, we still have another $361,000 in a CD with Community Bank. So
And that comes back in March.
altogether,
We actually did a cash flow study yesterday. And we walked through operating, making sure we were covering the full load of operating expenses for next year according to the budget. Looked at the overall large item demands on our cash and when we felt those would hit, which is the primary one is our Richfield Springs project. Walked through when we thought it's a pure guessing game, kind of an educated guess, but when we thought the fundings would occur, when we thought the reimbursements would occur, and kind of offset that in the cash flow study to come up with the amount of money we should dedicate and ladder into some CDs. So we did that, kind of did that. We still had some cushion because all of these numbers, like this 200,000 is not here
In
yet.
that, yep.
So we left it up for a cushion, but we kind of went in committed what we thought we were very comfortable committing long term.
the other thing we're going to do this year, which we did this current year, we're going to voucher for the county's funds up front in January. So hopefully we'll get those in February. So that's another $200,000 that'll be added into our checking account.
How much is the March CD? The one that
361.
Yeah, about 361.
so by then you can
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I think
Well,
it creates a really good cycle of potentially staggering, right? And
I
understanding
agree.
where, because like if we're gonna collect another 200 that we
Yeah.
have no use for, right?
Right.
Do you want to stagger that back into also a CD in 3 to 6 months?
And we're already seeing,
or in March when that one comes up.
we're already seeing a leveling in rates. So
Yeah.
that's why we wanted to lock in something in
Yeah.
the longest term we could over a 5.
So you reassess in March as the term rolling it over into another CD, or we need some of that money. Yeah,
Yes.
Great.
It should bring in probably like $45,000 between the 3 CDs in additional revenue for the year.
Not quite, but it's,
So we could have we have a monthly meeting in Costa Rica or something like that.
Yeah. Annual retreat.
Yes.
I'll go in there next month to set up for you.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, I think the question here is there a strategy that should be applied? I know this was sometimes a long time coming when we have it, but understanding at what cash position do we reevaluate the possibility for further investment and or as things come due and when we receive that income, I think sometimes that's a big chunk of money potentially we could be making here. I know rates aren't going to stay there, but by letting cash just sit and not having that
Well,
proactive.
that's why we went through the cash flow study
Right.
yesterday, because March is really, or the Q1 is really big because that's when you should start the project
Yeah.
in Richfield. We went through each of the grant applications and how much we should be getting in reimbursement, but that's a guessing game on when you'll get reimbursed. So you could be out as much as our estimate, 600,000 or 700,000 in a month, up to $1.1 million in a month.
Mhm.
Depending on the reimbursement cycle. So it's very difficult to predict until you kind of get there.
Yeah.
So I think the first quarter is really the next big analysis that we have to look
Okay.
at.
Do you guys have any documentation on that cash flow analysis? I'm just curious to see.
It was like all notes that
Okay,
I was doing as we were kind of going through the budget.
Not really in a very organized.
I'll let you save this. We can-
No, I might have it on my desk.
But I think it's an opportunity to learn from that too, right?
Yeah.
And being a little more proactive. I'm like, hey, I think we're sitting on extra money. I don't see a need for it in the next 6 to 12 months. Let's talk about how we can reinvest that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great.
So the next item is hiring loss and surveying in that bit.
Right, in your projects committee package, there's a site plan of the rail yards. And we're looking at taking about 3.5 acres of property and.
The last page on the project.
And having it surveyed,
How much?
about 3.5 acres. It's basically lot 4. Site plan.
Yeah, it's a lot that's off by itself, kind of.
The site plans in A, B, C, and D.
But I don't.
Is it E or is it 4? Or A?
Actually, the site plan doesn't really have to have like current
It's lot 8.
Okay.
Lot E, okay, yeah.
So we're looking at having that lot surveyed off, because that's obviously the most developable right now. It has water, sewer, natural gas to that site. And that's also the lot that we had cleared. So we're looking at starting to market that lot. As long as we were looking at that map, there was a question as to what we were considering sold to make enterprises versus an easement to make enterprises. So the lot that's about 50 feet wide in red, that's the one that he's looking to purchase and put in a road. And it's difficult to see, but where the easement is, there's actually a road that goes behind all the proposed buildings. So that can connect Roundhouse Road to that other parking lot. It doesn't make sense to look at to purchase it for the road into it. We'd obviously enter into agreement with him that we get an easement from him to use that road.
So that blue area, we're going to get into this project.
The reason he's looking for that easement is that eventually he would like to have rail siding to his buildings. And he thought that he did not purchase that section of the rail yards, and that he thought he already had access to the rail yards. And it turns out that he was wrong. They sold that property for us. So he's now, for the last 3 years, he's been saying, can I get an easement please to allow me to get that? And I said, I don't think it's.
So that, as you said, that easement leads on that road he's going to put in from Roundhouse Road to the easement that allows him to go over to the back of that property.
Right.
And it's a sewer line. It's just bizarre. The sewer line runs out back and all those properties.
Yeah, I did meet with the county administrator and he gave
City.
me maps showing those applications of where he believes that sewer line is. But it's really odd to do it that way.
Yeah, the city should have it.
It was the city administrator.
Oh, yeah.
He did. He gave
But
us the map.
one quick question, I know we're on finance, but how far does that line go based on what you saw? It doesn't go all the way down to like building lots D, C, and D, does it? Because
It can,
but it needs to be extended.
Where does it stop, do you know?
Yeah,
the rail line,
no, the sewer line.
the sewer line actually stops right now at Mays.
Right before the D coming this way, right?
Yeah, I think that the other building down there, the metal company,
They do not have.
they run across his property to get to the sewer. It's just. Okay.
So we went out for proposals. Machine reached out to 3 or 4 survey firms. We've gotten one back. His estimate is a little under $3,000 to do the survey. And it was Larson Survey.
Do you know where they're located now? Just as curiosity. They used to be, the old Leahy, that building, but that was purchased by the ballpark. Yeah.
On Route 7. They're on Route 7,
Oh, they're on Route 7? Okay.
5546.
So walk me through your steps now. You're looking at surveying the property out. And then,
And then we'll be coming back to the full board at the board meeting to sell a piece of that lot to whatever she's called.
May Enterprise.
a piece of what lot?
The lot was having subdivided now.
So the piece that you're surveying out is what you're looking at selling, correct? Or is it just a portion of it? Okay, so what's the next step to arrive at what the sales price is?
Yeah, that's.
How do we arrive at the sales price? Next step.
The sales price, we had it appraised this year, so we know exactly what the appraiser is.
You had the part that you're going to sell appraised?
No, they appraised the entire lot because it's not subdivided.
Understood?
And so
I understand, but how do we get to the,
we're just going to figure out a percentage of what square footage he has and based on the price per acre, that match.
So what's the new appraisal for?
Do you know how much it is? Remember?
Off the top of my head, I don't. It's
250.
more than that. It's actually, I think, 325.
Or are you just doing a survey to actually subdivide and? Because you said you just had an appraisal done this past year.
Yes.
Okay.
say an appraisal done on this? Now you're surveying this.
Yeah.
And you're gonna do some mathematical calculation based on this to reduce it to the, whatever the percentage size of this,
That's
right? As long as there's no other, I know I probably don't say this, any other infrastructure,
Right, yeah.
egress, any critical things that were affected by that little strip, that's all. Okay, so we'll more to come on that.
yes.
So we should let the survey company do that percentage. Right? So who's surveying that strip? Is he gonna survey that strip or are we surveying that strip?
We're going to survey it with the survey.
No, who's paying for it?
We are.
Hmm.
It's part of the fee.
And why are we paying for it if he wants it?
Because we have to find out what percentage of.
Yeah, we have
lot
to
it is
come up with a
in order to
price,
put
yeah.
Price on it.
If he weren't here asking you to buy it, you wouldn't be doing it.
I would say yes.
That's my theory.
So we can add, I mean, obviously, Larson bid on surveying out the entire parcel. When we asked him to look at that easement or that portion that we're going to sell off, he's probably going to raise the price and we can add that to the cost of the sale price.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, just pass it along, basically.
Good.
One last thing, and I don't need to belabor this, but it looks like that it's going through an area that was pretty much just gonna be a buffer zone between the two lots. Looks like there were gonna be trees in there. Doesn't look like it impacts the plan that's in front of us as far as the building and parking lots and things like that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
What's SWB? Does that mean?
MRB.
SWB?
Yes.
Is it stormwater basin?
Yeah, yes, it's on each property. Just wondering what that acronym was. Thank you.
Yeah, it should have dollars in next to it.
So obviously those will come up for vote in
When?
January or December 28th.
If we have a quorum, so we'll have to work on that in the next 2 weeks. Because it is December 28th, so I don't know how likely we are to get a full house. Did you want to talk about the other bill that we have from Hudson, Russ, and audit and finance? Because I didn't see it on the other agenda. I didn't know if this place for it.
Yes, probably the place for it.
Yes.
So another topic, and I just heard about this yesterday, but the staff received a bill from Hodgson Russ. Did you hear about this one?
No, I just this morning.
And I'll screw it up, but basically it's we haven't received bills from them for a period of time, and they're lumping a bunch together, and it goes back as far as 2 years. And it's $33,000.
35
35.
over.
It's
So
the next one. It's that one.
Yeah, I mean, our billing goes back to 2/7/22.
Yeah.
Could you pull them
Jim and Andrew, they don't have this, right?
I can send it to them right now. I'm forwarding it.
So just from a philosophical perspective, it's a good idea to talk about this and see what people think.
Yeah, really.
I can tell you, I'll give you a little anecdote about my prior job with a bank when I was in charge of all the legal bills that came in. We were in at the end, and it always happens at the end of the year, where the firm came in and lays a stack of bills and says, we're cleaning up our files, and here you go. Had a very similar situation. It went back 2 years, and I flat told them I'm not paying bills that weren't in the calendar year in which the service was provided. I don't know of any business that doesn't like to bill you and get paid for their service. They don't. Why would you wait 24 months? And then just from the flip side, when you're operating your business, you're trying to manage your P&L, you're trying to manage your budget, and you have no way to do that when you get hit with a massive bill, and then the resource to go back and validate is a tremendous issue. So. Yeah, that's just anecdotal, but I know the circumstances here. You guys know more about billings, not billings, or discussions about billings.
We had these discussions, actually the first year I was here, we got a bill from them that it included negotiations with Sandy on his contract, negotiation, a contract with me, which never materialized. And we ended up talking to them, and I think they renegotiated their bill down by 25%. In 2021, they sent us a bill that was not itemized and sent it back to them saying, I can't accept this bill because I need a breakdown for our audit firm, CPA firm, because they don't know what to charge it to. They never sent us a revised bill. So in 2021, they never paid anything. In 2022, they never sent us a bill. And then this year, they sent us a bill for 2022, 2023.
That's this one.
That's
Yeah,
this one.
Yeah.
Now, regarding the bills, there are things that are on the bill that in the past you wouldn't have charged.
I mean, I don't know if we need to get down into, personally, need to get down into the nitty gritty of that, because I think we're still at kind of a philosophy of like, we're getting charged for 2 years worth of billings that we didn't see until this year. I think you still, whatever we decide here, still have, if there's certain things in the bill, even for this year, if we were just look at that you want to negotiate or you feel like shouldn't be charged for, I think you should do that. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but I think right now the question before us is we have, and what's your insight and thoughts on this? It is interesting, we didn't pay them anything in 21. You know, what is your perspective on receiving something, really charging from 22? I can somewhat eat 20, you can accept 23 because that's the year you're in, but when you're getting charged in 23 at the end of the year for all of 22, what is your feeling or thoughts on that? And is that at all, I mean, this seems like they need to get their crap together.
I don't know whose fault it is on their end. I'm assuming it's actually the attorney's fault, not their billing department. That because it seems like Joe is just gonna sit down one day and figure out how many hours he put in and then send us a bill. It's not like it didn't come from their accounting department.
I just, like, how do you remember back 2 years? Like,
Just
unless
go
he's been
through your
keeping a
email.
log and then he just never.
Just put Jody's name in the email and see.
It makes absolutely no difference whether it's their county or whether it's their firm.
Right.
So this is a bill from their firm. And who screwed up or who didn't screw up, but do you know what the hourly, did I miss it? But they total the hours.
Yeah.
This is not getting down
How do
to, but
do the math.
they don't actually total the hours.
Well, they're different. They're different.
They're different
If you look
rates.
at the AJS and BAS, the initials, SEW,
Yeah.
they're gonna be different rates for different people. I would agree with Cheryl. You look at 23 and negotiate the items that you're not on the same page about. But I would also, my recommendation would be to say how unacceptable it is to get a bill for 22. That, you know, the resources to go back and validate it. I mean, we should expect a bill within the quarter, within the quarter that the services are rendered.
Absolutely agree.
But within a quarter at least.
I would argue that they should send us a monthly.
Well, you can argue that. My point is,
I
it's
think that is like,
reasonable to at least within a quarter. If they are slow in their process. I don't know of any client that wants their AR running 200 or 300, 400, 500 days. And that's what this is. This is their receivables. It's great. So.
and payments due within 15 days, just in case.
Yeah, he wants them in 20,
When did you receive this? When did you get this?
December 8th.
It's dated October 13th.
No, we got it in October.
Oh.
It's that I've been arguing with him about it since then.
That's the day he sent it to me.
Oh, October 31st. I'm sorry.
So you had talked to them about it, right? You're saying now?
Hmm.
You've been arguing with them about this?
Yes.
What are they saying?
Well, his argument is, well, I told your board when we were discussing the Richfield Springs project that my bill's going to be really high this year because of that project.
Which year?
I would accept it if it were for that project in this year, but the fact that it's not necessarily, again, and I don't know what the breakdown of the numbers are in terms of how much of this is actually 22 costs and how much of this is actually 23. It's just because they have hours, but they don't have the breakdown.
Not particularly high bill for 2 years, quite frankly.
It's not for legal services in the end, right? I think, I just do feel like it's not really acceptable to expect an entity to pay in one shot 2 years worth of billings. I mean, to Jeff's point, I think, right, my gut is negotiate 23 where the items you have concern. Do the same thing for 22, quite honestly, if there's items of concern. Work out a payment schedule in terms of what you feel comfortable paying from the 22. But I would say going forward, without a doubt, we have to have some kind of agreement that if we are not getting billed for the services within a certain time period, we're not going to pay for those services, or it's a reduced cost or something, because I mean, from an operational standpoint, this isn't fair on us either. right? To have a huge influx due immediately.
So the other issue is that we talked about this briefly yesterday, is I'm not sure that some of these legal issues, I don't think Joe is qualified to do some of the legal issues that he's been working on. And obviously, I don't think Kurt is. I mean, the whole issue on the solar energy projects. Joe is not an expert in solar energy projects. He didn't, the models that I generated to give to the solar energy company, he couldn't understand them, and he was trying to argue them. And it just,
How did Joe get involved in the solar projects? Did we engage him and ask him to represent
the
us?
county asked if we would have our attorney.
I think it's a whole side issue. You've got to traffic cop that. If you feel like you've got something that you need to go outside of the expertise of, Joe or Kurt, that's up to you. You've got to make that call. You engage them and don't say, hey, I'm going to go elsewhere. That's on us, in my opinion. So if they're doing work that they aren't necessarily providing the value return, that's where you've got to make the call and say, I got to do something elsewhere. Yeah.
A firm for that particular project. Right. There are firms that specialize in environmental issues that.
Yeah, I mean, Joe is a bond counsel. He does pilots and bond agreements, but I don't think he's an expert in anything else.
So I think that's on us.
And that's it. It is. Kurt brought in Joe on the Richfield Springs project because Kurt says, I really don't know how to handle, do water and sewer agreements. And I'm like, well, in hindsight, I'm not sure Joe knows how to do this.
Yeah, I think that's your oversight in terms of leadership on making that choice. So that's probably a whole different side issue we can bucket outside of. Because if we engage them and they did work for us, even if they didn't do it well or they ultimately that.
Let me just ask the question. Are we saying to them, we want quarterly bills or want monthly bills going forward?
Everybody else that we hire send us a monthly, like, on engineering, send us a monthly bill.
It's my experience. It does.
And that's because they don't want to have their fees out there by 40 days, 50 days.
Jim, are you hearing everything?
Yes.
Okay.
So two pieces to this, right? Look at 23. If there are particular issues that you disagree with, you have to have that discussion as a negotiation. But 22, I think it's a higher level discussion with them about it's unacceptable to be presenting a bill, especially if it's not even detailed to the level that you'd like to see it. No subtotals, no hourly costs, any of that. Kind of unreasonable to have us have to audit it and understand that all those charges are appropriate. And
Yeah, it'll take me.
I'm happy. I totally agree that fees aren't astronomical, certainly, but at the end of the day, you just want some reasonableness. And if it, if the bill ends up being 30 because they negotiated down, that's you, and you guys are comfortable with that, then let us know, because you just have to.
Agreed.
I agree. But definitely, I would say make some kind of understanding going forward on what will happen if, right, what the expectations are and what the and agreed upon. If it's not billed within a month, a quarter, whatever the cycle might be, we only pay 50% or, whatever that might be. So I think that's something to make sure you get on the same page with them going forward, where there's an agreement and there's no questions.
Never heard of attorneys now.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. In terms of trying to negotiate this bill down because of the circumstances. I mean, this is unreasonable to go back to 22 and expect us to sort it all out. We need some, negotiations there. And then going forward, I think we need to have some, guidelines in terms of when we can expect a bill, whether it's, as Cheryl says, monthly, quarterly. That should be written into whatever retainer or contract we come up with them. So I agree we need to tighten this up considerably. And also, if, we ought to be looking at, a skill set that we really need to accomplish some of these, bringing some of these projects to conclusion. We need that as well. Not to just say we have this is our attorney, but we need to make sure that we have this attorney with the skill sets to, bring it to a head.
That's why understanding the detail of the bill is so important, because you see different initials. Joe might hand off something that's water and sewer to somebody else in his firm who doesn't know that. And that's what you see, like DAS or SEW. And they may, I know they had a guy in there that specialized in more commercial real estate stuff that was working with us for a while. So that's why you have to understand those.
But again, even after 2 years, I wouldn't say that bill would.
No.
It's not like I'm like eye popping, $100,000 here.
So,
Because when you call them, you hear them hit the button, start billing you the minute they pick up the phone.
Yeah.
So usually you get the bill pretty quickly after that,
Yeah, usually it's.
unless they're on retainer.
So I don't have
Yeah.
anything else.
great. Motion to dismiss.
So moved.
Yeah.
In favor?
We can't do that though, because
Yeah.
we don't.
Yeah, we don't.
Can't make a motion, can never leave. We're in a vortex. We couldn't call the meeting to order.
We're stuck. We were never in session.
So Tom is not here. Jim, I don't know if you'd like to lead the projects meeting?
Well, we'll go with what Jody has to offer with on projects.
For the trackers.
Okay, depending on a rail yard, we have gotten an estimate for what it would cost to oil and stone. The unpaid portion, which is about $36,000.
It's by far the largest part of it.
Sorry,
It's by far the longest section of the road.
yeah,
About 3,300 feet, right?
yeah, it's about 6/10 of an acre or
A mile.
So we're probably gonna go out to bid on that in February and just get a real estimates. We don't have to accept them. We'll put a catch-all in there that subject to approval by our agency.
You said that didn't include prep?
No. Now, one of the things that's happened is that, with this in the report, is that the two buildings that are down there at the end of the road that were owned by Jefferson, they were sold to the feed company, which
Okay.
Is that the opposite end of where Luke's
Yeah,
actually at? Okay, yeah.
Loose Feed has raised an issue that, since they own those two buildings and have tenants in them, they've been putting gravel and laying out because there were all these ruts.
I've seen him where they've done.
And he said it's probably cost them between $6,000 and $10,000 in gravel. I'm like, well, good, glad you did that. He would like to have some type of agreement. And I don't know which attorney to refer this to. Sure. I mean, I'll talk to Kurt about it, what his fee will be for this. But they would like to have some agreement that they can maintain that road without any liability from us.
Well, let me ask you a question. If we, first of all, it's got to get graded, probably gonna need, bring in, some aggregate before they oil and stone it, and then there will be no need for Boots to do anything.
That's my thought on it, but I told them I'll sit down with them, their project manager, the city administrator, and probably Richard Bremer, to see where we're gonna go with this before we go out to bid.
Have you been down that road? I don't even like taking my truck. It's,
I lived on a road that was just as bad.
His concern, and they said that and where their liability issue is they would like to snow plow it. Just to make sure that's.
the tenants can get to their building.
Right.
But what liability would they have? What are they afraid of, I guess? It would be more, we should be more concerned than
I've been.
They-
Anybody down there, I was gonna put up a gate and say, don't even go down there. Because technically, if somebody gets hurt.
yeah, I mean, like anything that happens on that road, it's our liability. It's not theirs. So I guess I'm curious, like even if they do something to the road, it's still our liability if something happens.
Well, they'd get sued also. That's what they're saying.
And it'd be very, very difficult to do so. They have no ownership in it.
Yeah, except that they did the work on it.
They're putting gravel.
But it wouldn't be at the behest of anybody, right? Like it wouldn't, right? Ultimately, we should be more concerned than they are, bottom line.
So
Yeah.
just for clarity for my mind, there's a road that, and there are two buildings that, not Lutz, but other tenants are in?
Yes.
And Lutz owns the buildings? Okay. In life, there would be a road.
Correct.
If people are using the road to get to their building, there would be some type of agreement from the jump, from when they started, to how do they get into their buildings off of our road? And is there a maintenance agreement? Is there an easement? What's, I don't know all that. I mean,
My guess is in the deed, essentially, we have ownership of the road with an easement, essentially they have access, and then we are responsible for road maintenance.
Well,
but he was talking about blocking. That doesn't sound to me like they're granted an easement at their leisure. That sounds like he was gonna block the road. It's ours.
they would like an easement to use that road.
So there's no official, even in the, that's
No,
That's where I'm going.
purchase the property without that.
now, with the paved portion of Roundhouse Road, because remember, we paved it 3 years ago. There is an agreement with the city that the city is to maintain the snow plowing and that during the winter.
But those buildings, those property owners all have easements to use that road.
No.
But isn't Lutz in the town anyway? Would it go all the way down?
I'm sorry.
Isn't Lutz in the town?
Yes.
Lutz is fine, but the new properties, right,
Aren't
that
they right next door?
Nobody has easements, I don't believe, to use that road.
So
they must. They
they
absolutely
have
must be
to have
tied to the
ingress and
deed.
egress to their properties. They
Yeah.
have to have the ability.
They must have, otherwise you would never buy a block of property that has no access to get to. That just doesn't make any sense.
Did Jefferson own that road, correct, at one time? And
Yes.
so he sold off lots before we got involved. There's the golf place down there, right?
Right, I mean, we could do research on everybody's deed.
But we're talking about issues that are talking about things that whether we should or shouldn't do, whether they're moral, whether they're legal, whether we have to understand what the agreements are today that are in place.
'Cause the bottom line, Jody, is like, if there's already an easement, I don't think you need to do this extra agreement stuff, right?
Right.
There should be something already in those deeds, which would take one deed check for one property. I'm gonna guess all the other properties were essentially handled the same way. Let me know. And then there really is no need to do any other additional liability agreements or anything.
Yeah, I don't think there's an agreement with any of the properties that Boots purchased.
There has to be.
No, because Treverson built those buildings. They were on his property. So he didn't put it in his deed until after there,
So he built them on his land, then he subdivided them off and sold them, but when they bought them, they didn't care about access?
that's correct. Well, they cared about access, but he already sold the property to us without granting himself an easement on those properties.
He didn't own the road anymore. He sold the road to us with the rest of the property.
All right.
So it may be correct on everybody else on Roundhouse Road, that they don't have easements, but those two particular buildings don't.
It sounds like Luke's doesn't think they have an easement because they want one. Correct?
Yeah.
If they had an easement, why would they ask us for one? Bizarre.
Yeah, it's very.
Well, it's because it was owned privately. They say they sold off certain lots, then they sold the rest.
How long ago did they buy? Do you know?
3 months ago.
Oh, they just bought.
Yes.
You can't blame Luke's for wanting to provide access to the buildings they own.
Yeah, I wouldn't have purchased without
What,
that.
did they have
in there.
legal counsel? And a title work?
Yeah. Can we agree that we need clarification that they in fact do not have easements to get to those buildings on a road?
Yeah, I mean, that should be a really easy deed check.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those things.
Yeah, I should ask that. And essentially, you have it, check your deed. Do you have any stated right of way or easement access to those buildings?
In Kirkland. Let's search it real quick.
When I talked to the project manager, he was not pressing us to resurface the roads, to do anything. I said, well, we're looking into putting down oil and stone on those roads. You know, but that wasn't their big issue. They just wanted an issue to be able to get to those two properties.
Yeah, it's not,
Well, because I mean, here's the moment, right? There is a moment too, if you're doing this agreement now, where you could actually assign road maintenance to them if you wanted to, for that portion of the road that you're granting easement. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm not saying we should do. I'm just saying, as you're doing it now, this is the moment where you're going to essentially also assign ownership for road maintenance.
if you go to Luke's feed, it's a great operation. These guys are great. And it's not very far down the road to get to these two buildings. But why would they care after their two buildings for the rest of it?
No, I'm saying you would do it for the portion you're giving them the easement. Essentially, you would say, if we're gonna give you the easement, you're also gonna take on the road
And I think we
maintenance.
should do that with any property that we sell, that they should enter into an agreement that provides maintenance costs.
Potentially prime maintenance cost, that's different than they are doing the maintenance. So if they have, and you could do that with Luke's now, right, in terms of giving us money for the maintenance, but then that puts us on the hook for the maintenance. That means we've got to do what we need to do to maintain that road. I wouldn't want to do that with each individual tenant or each individual landowner, because you could have inconsistency in the road. It just makes no sense.
I mean, that's why
One guy plows this and then the next guy doesn't plow his
Right,
road.
right. That's why
right?
municipalities take the whole thing usually, because you can't have 8 different property owners having 8 sections to maintain
Right,
at
exactly.
different levels.
The city plows to the end of the pavement, then they turn around and come back and the whole section of gravel and, moon craters doesn't get plowed at all.
Yeah, I think I'm really sick of talking about this road.
Yeah.
And I would like you to put together a plan and execute it.
Yep.
Whatever that looks like, whatever that means, I'm really sick of talking about this road because that's all we've done for about 3 years.
So moving on to,
I can go down and drive it. Get them out of here. Yeah.
moving on to Richfield Springs.
Mhm.
Perhaps the biggest thing that's happened is I did get an email from Ron Jack of New York State DEC, and he indicated he's working on conditions. So it appears that they've moved off and are moving ahead with giving us a permit for that.
Which means we should have those when it's time to put shovels into the ground. Yeah.
Regarding my report, we finally come to an agreement with Norbutt Solar. There were 2 solar arrays in Evanston. So that was a positive thing. We finally agreed on the model and what parameters should be put into there. The biggest thing that we didn't know about in our model was that we didn't put a lease amount in there. And basically what Norwood is doing is they created an LLC that actually is going to own the solar projects, and they're leasing it from Norwood. It's basically a subsidiary corporation. But by charging $100,000 per lease on each solar array, it really alters the assessment. It makes it drop very low.
And have we seen an estimate on their investment? What their investment is going to be in these two arrays, or no? Have we seen an acreage?
Yeah, I have the acreage. And I don't know if they're gonna put up more solar arrays. They're just working on 2 right now, but they have more than enough room to put up another 2 to 4.
So we've been involved in solar projects in the past, right?
Yeah.
How do we arrive at
There's a formula.
assessment and charges?
It changed this year, 2023. The state of New York came up with a new model for assessors on how to assess solar projects.
Okay.
And that's the model we've been using with Norbutt. And it basically looks at the utility that's purchasing the electric, whether it's National Grid, Niagara, Mohawk, they all have different types of formulas, rates. They look at how much benefits they're getting from the state, and those are factored into there.
Mhm.
The big item is the lease amounts, and apparently all the solar companies are doing the same tactic, and they're forming a subsidiary and doing a sublease with themselves. That
Well, I know, but that's where I'm going. In the past, we've driven it off of kilowatt hours and
Yes.
revenue that's being, the sale of the electric out of the solar array. Now everyone's inserting this layer to make it a net lease income analysis instead of what power it's supplying.
That's
So that has a significant effect on reducing what they pay, right?
That's correct. So that's one of the reasons I've been going around to all the municipalities and the school districts saying you should opt out of this program. Because by opting out, you can negotiate
Directly, your own direct, yeah.
right. And you can have the IDA do a different pilot than what's in that agreement.
It's because they're leasing the property, they don't buy the property, correct?
Norbord bought the property.
Oh, okay.
If Norbit bought it and was just operating it, then there is no lease.
Right.
They're an operating entity and your calculations are based on the kilowatt hours and the revenue generated. But they're inserting this now. It's another entity that's leasing it.
Right.
And the only income coming off that property for that entity is lease income. That's a set number.
Usually the lease is going to be given to Norbord anyway, because it's all the same.
Sure it is. Yeah.
Slick, very
And their
slick.
attorney got mad at me and started saying, well, this is how it's done now. Everybody does it this way.
Well,
And I'm like, I understand.
everybody wants to either on his side save the money or make more money.
Is that the formula that the local taxing entity has to use also?
Yes, but I don't
Town of
think,
Edmiston?
I don't think those assessors are going to be able to figure it out.
I don't know.
It took me literally a month and a half going through the programs with NYSERDA, staff at NYSERDA, to double check what I was doing because it's so complicated. I don't see our local assessor in Edmonton being able to figure this out.
Yeah, they'll need to hire a firm to do it. So how do we figure a pilot?
Jody's gonna do it, that's how.
Yeah,
I don't think,
then they say.
now that I understand the model, it's not that difficult. But it's basically, the problem with Norbord was that they have a site manager that was negotiating pilot. And I said, listen, and he wouldn't give me their calculations. He would just say, this is the form that we use in every other community. They finally got their accounting division to sit down with me on a Zoom meeting and walk through the model that they used, which is the same one I was using, but they gave me the inputs that they were using. And that's when I realized there's discrepancies between our two. But until that point in time, it was like negotiating with, a brick wall. It was just like, I can agree with you if you tell me how you did your model. But until you show me the actual model and the parameters that are in it, and that's why it took 4 or 5 months.
This is not gonna be the last solar, right?
No.
Deal with the-
That's why it's so important to, because you don't want to roll over on a tax, a tax strategy for them.
Absolutely.
If in fact it should be a pure negotiation.
And they're accounting.
What if they come in with a lease and say, okay, I'm gonna lease the ground for $5,000? And that's what your assessment's built on, $5,000 a year. I mean, that's nothing.
But I mean, technically, if they did that, like, we wouldn't even enter into a pilot with them. I mean, right, what business are they doing where you would actually want to take them off the tax roll? Like, why would you do a pilot? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that structure works for them and what they're trying to potentially accomplish with, but in the end, you walk away from pilot. I mean, we're in the driver's seat here. We're helping them save money. It gives us income, but we're helping them save money.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have to take a back seat in this conversation and just accept whatever they are throwing your way. I think you've got to create that concrete process. Here's how we do it. Here's what we need from you. If we don't get it from you, we're not doing a pilot.
And that's ultimately how we came to an agreement, was sitting down with their.
Yeah.
Sitting down.
I mean, you wouldn't do a pilot to somebody that just bought land and leased it.
Right. Exactly. It's an investment. You wouldn't do it. You just wouldn't do it.
There would be no justification for that whatsoever.
Their investment is
Is solar.
Your source of lease is the operation of the solar, right? And that's where the calculations.
And it became clear that it's the governor's office that's driving this. They want to have more profits for the solar companies to invest in solar energy, because that's where the states wants to go. They won't get out of oil and natural gas. And so they're pushing these solar projects and trying to.
We can still negotiate.
I don't know how local assessors are, any idea what the pilot is based on. They just aren't gonna get it. Not our problem necessarily.
Well, the problem is they'll take the easiest path, and that is looking at a lease.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really easy. We'll do that.
Yeah.
So the other big news is the county did approve our $200,000, increasing from $75,000 to $200,000. There was some discussion subsequent to that, after they adopted that, with some of the committee members, that they know are coming back and asking for the additional $75,000 next year. And
we have Andrew's support?
Thanks, Andrew.
Access is moving along. We should be able to close that out. We'll probably ask for an extension for a couple of months, but it won't go past 2024. It's supposed to end in June of 2024, probably end November 20. Asadi finished their building. They had real high praises for us. I'm not sure why. We're working with Family Farmstead Dairy. They're looking to do a major expansion at their facility. They're looking at about a $1.5 million project. Sat down with them yesterday again, and they're looking for help in financing. We referred them actually to pursue for some of the loan financing. They have a decent operation. What they do is, I don't know that much about milk, but they use the A2 protein genes in their milk products. Basically, these are A1 products are modern cows. Protein that you get out of this, and A2 is apparently historical 200-year-old type of cows that have better protein, and that's how they're marketing it. Organic and A2, and apparently everybody loves it. It's buying it. Pathfinder Village, I don't know if we're going to move ahead with this, but right now that they've said that they would want to explore doing a bond issue with us, similar to something that we do like at Springbrook with the hospital. They're looking at a $5.5 million expansion of the historic barn. They've raised about $2 million in private monies. They're looking at Empire State Development, but they understand that Empire State Development money won't come until after the project is complete. So they're saying maybe we should do a bond issue at a low interest rate, and then ultimately maybe pay it off quicker than we anticipate.
Do you know what barn it is?
I think it's the old Westcott farm. I think the Westcott farm.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Is Paul still there? or-
No, he's left now.
Okay. I know he was-
I don't know if it's official yet, like, I got the letter, but they've hired somebody else, so I don't, they're in that transition.
Yeah, right. Thanks.
So we have been approached by a company out of Rochester, Lendall, North America, that makes scale paddles for kayaking. Apparently they have a large high-end market and they want to move out of Rochester because of the crime. And so they're looking for an area like here. They actually, again,
They're looking for an area to do what? Manufacture or to use as a distribution center?
no, they want to move higher operation. That would do manufacturing and distribution. After we met yesterday, they reached out to me again and said, can they get into one of the buildings either tomorrow or next week? So that they are seriously looking at
Buildings?
They asked for recommendations on buildings that might be available. So we gave them,
Available lease space.
Oh, okay.
we told them Drogan's building, Northern Eagle might have space, because he had told us that they had released.
Yeah, they reached out, the realtor who's handling Northern Eagle said, sure, they'd be interested in leasing space, so.
They were looking for loading dock, and they wanted to be near water.
And I've got to get back hold of Arnie Drogan. When I called him last week, he was in his doctor's office in New York. And said, I'll get back to you early next week. If I have space, I can lease them. I haven't heard from him, so I'll reach out.
Could be a good company to be able to kind of, again, eventually maybe get into the business park. You know, depending on if they, I don't know how much it is to move all of it into Northern Eagle to move it again, but
Yeah, they stated, I saw one of the units, I said they don't want to move twice. Right.
yes, we would, yeah, okay.
Right, because what I suggested was they take the space and for a 6-month period, we can build them a building. And they said they don't want.
Move twice, okay, gotcha.
And the last one, I've gotten 3 calls, Zoom meetings with Empire State Development on the grant application we submitted for the airport. It appears that they're going to make a decision by January, and they said they're running toward.
That leverages a significant amount of money, doesn't it? Having that grant.
I think it's a $4.5 million grant, of which they're short like 230,000.
So they need this for, yeah.
Okay.
Great.
You might look at the numbers in the CD paragraph. Those are different.
Okay. Yeah, that's because we said access January.
But you're,
We can say that.
Just for information, remember the WIST proposal for an event center down in the business park?
yes.
Yeah,
They're putting, they bought property, like it's some end. Put it in a much better place.
yeah. There,
If you go to the end of 23-205 and you take a left on 23,
Mhm.
it's where that old gravel bank was directly on the right there.
okay.
Right there. They've got equipment in there, they put in some roads.
So Ryan Bush just emailed, he wants to sit down on his bottling plant expansion. He's still moving.
Great.
Okay.
Governance.
Do we need to adjourn the meeting that we never had?
Yeah,
Yeah, we are getting out of projects and government to governance.
Andrew has left.
Yes, Andrew had to leave.
You're up, Dave.
Next man up.
I will forego the chairman's comments. New and unfinished business, do we have any?
No.
We're champion.
Yeah, I know people I'll send an email, but just a reminder, if any board members have any evaluation templates or samples that you would like for consideration, send those my way so I can. I know, Joe, you have one you do for the self-eval, and so I'll just kind of look to see what makes sense.
We can't have an executive session because we don't have quorum.
Correct.
I did send out a memo to everybody. today.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which
Do
was,
we want to just end the meeting and we can
Yeah,
just?
we don't need an executive session if we end the meeting. We're just saying.
That's, there's nothing to add.
Anything else for governance?